Hi, welcome to Teacher Jeff Free Online Reviewer. In this video, we will answer practice questions with test-taking techniques I used during my time. This video is created to help you with your preparations for your licensure examination for teachers. So you can use this video as your additional resource materials if you're doing self-review or you need alternative modes of learning while studying with a review center. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload new contents. Please join my free online review using Google Classroom apps, or you can type in classroom.google.com from any browser. So this is what you will see, and you can join my class by entering the classroom code as you can see on the screen. And once you're able to join, you are free to play around with the virtual classroom using Google Class. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the lesson for today. So we will talk. We will answer some questions under Prof Ed Assessment of Learning, and we will answer set number 1. Okay, so for set number 1. So this is what you will see in the Google Classroom, and we will apply some of the techniques I have learned, and I will share it with you so it will be easier for you to answer similar questions in the licensure examination. Okay, so let's start with our first question for assessment of learning. So the first question is: Teacher Jeff conducted a short quiz after discussing the topic measures of central tendency to get feedback on how much students learned, which may not be used for grading purposes, is classified as A. So the options are placement assessment, summative assessment, formative assessment, and diagnostic assessment. Okay, so what I usually do is I read the question first and the options. Okay, so please don't fall into the trap of jumping right away into your own answer, especially if the question seems very familiar or it seems like you know the answer. So you have to make sure to save time and to avoid wasting your precious time during the examination, that you have to make sure you first understand the question, and then you have to read through the options. Why is it important to read through the options? Because sometimes even before you fully grasp the question, you might have an idea what could be the possible answer based on the options alone. Okay, later on I will show you some examples wherein you will have an idea. You can already eliminate some of the options that are possibly wrong. Okay, so in this situation, first let's go to the question. You have to understand. So according to this one, the first sentence seems to give you a shock, because it says here it mentions about the measures of central tendency. So you might think, oh, this is like some concept in math, so I might be talking about mean, median, mode, right? Or range, and also range, because we're talking about measures of central tendency. But don't jump to conclusion right away. Why? Because the question is not related to measures of tendency. This refers to a topic that the subject, which is Teacher Jeff, is discussing. So the first question is really not a big deal. Okay, so the second sentence really has you should focus more on the second question instead. Okay, so the second question is to get feedback on how much the students learned, which may not be used for grading purposes, is classified as A. Okay, so basically the first sentence has nothing to do with the second one, right? And the most important one really is on the second sentence. So we're talking about, the question is about a certain assessment wherein the teacher could get a feedback on how much the students learned, right? So the purpose is you wanted to determine. So of course an assessment does that, right? A test, a quiz, it does that. But the question is what kind of? And there is another clue here. It says it may not be, or which may not be used for grading purposes. So this part seems familiar, right? It is recorded but not graded. It says may not be used, right? It may or may not be. So let's go ahead and check with our options. Let's start with placement assessment. Okay, so when you're doing placement assessment, are you trying to figure out, or are you trying to get a feedback? Are you trying to get a feedback regarding, what the students have learned? Okay, and is this something that we simply record but we don't grade? Right? So placement is definitely recorded. It's also graded, and we use it to determine where we will place a certain individual, probably a grade level, a group, a section, or perhaps a course. Just like when we were in college, depending on your entrance exam results, you could be qualified to take engineering, perhaps medicine, or any mass communication, being a teacher. So you would have an idea where you could be placed, but that's not really what's being asked here, right? So we will mark that as an X. So we're eliminating now. The second one, summative. Let's say if we are doing summative, so when do we usually do the summative, right? We do a summative assessment usually at the end of, let's say, a quarter, a grading, let's say a semester, right? So summative, and the thing about summative is that it is recorded, true, but it's definitely graded, right? So that already eliminates the second option. We now have C and D. So that gives us like 50-50% or 50% chance of being right. So now we will be choosing between formative, and we will be choosing between diagnostic. So let's start first with D, diagnostic. So we are trying to diagnose, right? So in this question, we wanted to get a feedback on how much the students learned, right? Okay, so diagnostic actually does that. We wanted to know what they know and what they don't know. So the area we're in, they are having some struggles or difficulty, right? Just like from the word diagnostic, the root word is diagnose. If you go to a doctor, you will be diagnosed what could be your ailment, right? What could be your health challenge. That is the purpose of a diagnosis, right? You want to be diagnosed. So however, are we really trying to figure out the weakness or the area for improvement of the learners here? And is diagnostic, well, definitely diagnostic is recorded, but do we also grade it, right? It may not be graded, possible. Okay, and it's usually done at the beginning of every, before the start of the grading period, so we will be able to plan ahead our lessons, right? So basically from here, you would have an idea that it's similar, but there is a difference with what's being asked. So let's go to the option C, formative assessment. So formative assessment, the teacher, from the word itself, form, to shape, right? What are we trying to shape? Because we wanted to know what are the challenges of our learners, right? What are they? I mean, it actually helps us prepare for the summative, right? And usually formative is associated with a type of an assessment that is recorded but not graded. So if you hear this word recorded but not graded, it's always associated with formative. So that's what I have read in some of the books. So reading is also very important. Let's go ahead and try to check if my answer is correct. Okay, so the answer for this question is formative assessment. And by definition, formative assessment is given during or after instruction to improve learning and to get feedback from the performance or achievement of the students. So that's the reason why it's formative. Okay, now let's move on to our second question. Our second question is, the criterion of success of teacher Jeff in his lesson is that the students must be able to get 85% of the test items correctly. Ryan and 29 other students in the class answered only 33 out of 40 items correctly. So what can you conclude from this? Okay, again, don't jump into conclusion. Let's read the options first. First, teacher Jeff attained his lesson objective because of his effective problem-solving skills. B. Teacher Jeff did not attain his lesson objective because of his students' lack of attention. C. Teacher Jeff attained his lesson objective. D. Teacher Jeff did not attain his lesson objective as far as the 30 students are concerned. Okay, so let's go back here and let's check the options. Okay, for the first option, I already find something is wrong with this option. Okay, so let me explain to you why. Because from the description here, it says teacher Jeff attained his lesson objective because of his effective problem-solving skills. I find this problematic. This option is problematic. Why? Because nothing is stated in the question or in the problem regarding the effectivity of his problem-solving skills. So for me, I would cross this out because of this information that is not present. Not present or not even implied, right? So it would be difficult for you to conclude or make assumptions about the effectivity of his problem-solving drills. So there's already an X. The second one, it says here, teacher Jeff did not attain his lesson objective because of his students' lack of attention. Again, this part is also problematic for me. Nothing is stated here regarding anything about attention or lack or presence of attention. So these two options, I would automatically cross them out. So that leaves me with C and D as my option. So that gives me 50% chance of getting this question right. Okay, so now let's try to compare. It says here, if you have noticed, the two options are also opposite, right? One says Jeff attained and the other one says did not attain. Okay, but one is longer. Most of us probably have been trained to always choose the longer one or the longest, but that's not always the case, right? So let's see. It says here, teacher Jeff did not attain his lesson objective as far as the 30 students are concerned. Do you find this part problematic? Think about it first. Well, it's not really problematic. Why? Although the number that you see here states 29, but remember in this sentence it says Ryan and 29 other students. Therefore, there's actually a total of 30 students involved. So this part is correct. Okay. However, since these two are contrasting, either obtained or did not obtain or attain the goal. Okay, so let's try to figure out if teacher Jeff did attain or not. Okay, so from here, it's actually a very simple mathematics. All you have to do is, according to this one, it says that in order for teacher Jeff to say that he was able to attain the criterion of success, it should be 85% of the test items are correct. So to 30 students here, they answered 33 out of 40 items correctly. So it's a simple division here. So 33 divided by 40, let me go ahead and use a calculator here. So it says here 33 divided by 40 So that's 0.825, and since this is a percentage, then you multiply it by 100. That gives you 82.5. Okay, let's go back. 82.5. So teacher Jeff did not actually attain, the objective, because the objective is 85. So we will be choosing the fourth option here as our answer. Okay, so the answer key here states that exactly 82.5% of the students got the items correctly. Hence, teacher Jeff did not attain his objectives. So the answer is D. Okay, for the next question, what can be done to increase the difficulty of a multiple choice test item? So this is something that we're very familiar. So A, make the options homogeneous. B, make the stem short and clear. C, make it grammatically correct. D, make the options equal in length. Okay, so as you can see here, the choice here is to increase the difficulty. Okay, from the options to make it quicker or faster for you to answer, let's check. It says make the options homogeneous or the same, or they should be the same type. Second is make the stem short and clear, make it grammatically correct, and make the options equal in length. Okay, let's start with D this time. So make the options equal in length. Okay, so this could be a little bit problematic for multiple choice test items, because it will be sometimes difficult for you to really make it the same. But it's not difficult for the students, but difficult for you creating the question, right? Okay, so this is going to be an X for me. Make it grammatically correct. Well, if you make your questions grammatically correct, it will be easier for the students to understand the question. So that's not going to make it more difficult. The other one, make the stem short and clear. Okay, being direct or concise and clear with your question, it's not going to make it difficult too. The last option, which of course obviously that's the correct one, it says make the options homogeneous. Do you think if the options or the choices are almost the same, the concepts are the same, the terms you use in the options are discussed in the same, let's say, topic or chapter, when your students recall that particular topic or question, they would have difficulty differentiating. Okay, so now this makes sense, right? So making the options homogeneous will make your choice, your multiple choice test item more difficult. So that is our answer. And let's see the rationalization here. So to increase the difficulty of a multiple choice test item, make options in the same class, or it must be homogeneous. Homogeneous choices makes it challenging for learners to determine the answer immediately. Okay, we don't want to make it difficult, but we want it to be a little bit challenging, so our learners will be able to choose using their logic, okay, and also their stock knowledge. Next question. Teacher Jeff set 85% accuracy on a test in predicting the lead passers for this year in his study. So Teacher Jeff has a student named Brian who obtained a score of 82%. So this can be interpreted as, okay, well, actually from this it will be a lot easier. So remember, Teacher Jeff sets 85% as accuracy, so that's the standard here, but Brian obtained 82%. Okay, now let's check here. There are two numbers mentioned here, 82% and 3%. Okay, well, 82%, yeah, it could make sense. Where did you get the 3% here? That's the difference between 85 and 82. Okay, so from here, I could remove 50% of the choice to make my chance 50-50 in getting it right. So in here, obviously this is the standard and this is the result that you have obtained. I would go with the 3%. So I will X out A and I will X out C. So my probable answer here would be Brian did not meet the set standard by 3%, or Brian is 3% short of the set percentile score. So is it in the set percentile score or did not meet the standard? So nothing is mentioned about percentile score here, right? The 85% here is the standard in predicting the accuracy. So therefore, instead of the percentile score, the correct one should be Brian did not meet the set standard by 3%. So let's check. Okay, that is correct. The answer here is the standard set by teacher Jeff is 85% and Brian obtained 82% only, hence he did not meet the standard by 3%. Okay, so we're correct. The next question here, teacher Jeff gave a test at the end of a lesson to find out if the objectives of his lesson have been attained. So what kind of assessment is this? Okay, so we are familiar with placement assessment, curricular assessment, norm referenced, and criterion referenced. Let's go ahead and visit them one at a time. The first is placement assessment. We already have discussed this earlier. We're not trying to place or categorize or put into a certain group based on the problem, so this is going to be an X. Curricular assessment. Okay, there's going to be a problem here because we are not assessing the curriculum here, so obviously that's also an X. So the only possible answer here will be between norm reference and criterion reference. Okay, so let's check norm. When you say norm, I always use the word norm for normal. When you say normal, just yourself, right? Meaning you're not competing with anyone, you're not competing with any standard, but you're just simply competing with your own performance. So that's norm. Okay, however, for criterion, from the word criteria, so you are being compared with a certain standard or certain group or a certain basis, right? Or a certain criteria. That's why it's called criterion. So in this case, it says here that you wanted to figure out if the objectives of your lessons have been obtained. So meaning the purpose of this exam is to compare it with your objective. Therefore, there is a criteria used. Therefore, I will choose criterion reference in this case, and that is correct. According to the answer key, criterion reference is a type of assessment in which the performance of the students compared to a certain standard or criterion. In this case, the performance of the students will be compared to the instructional objectives of the teacher. Okay, so next here is, the next question is, what are the characteristics of a good assessment instrument? Okay, the options are objectivity, validity, practicality and efficiency, and last, reliability. Okay, so you have to check the options here. As you can see from the options here, you will notice that you have 1 on the 4 choices. So most likely, I would eliminate here option B. Okay, and also you would notice that option 2 is also present on A, C, and D. Correct. So most likely these one of the 3 might be the correct answer. In here, you would also notice that number 4 or option 4 is also present, but of course the second has already been eliminated. So I could also eliminate this one. So I am left with options A and option D. So I am again left with 50% chance of getting this right. Okay, so now let's check. Obviously objectivity is present, validity is present, reliability is present. Oh no, I mean, oh, okay. So as you can see here, 2 and 3. So we have to choose between 2 or 2 and 3. Okay, so this is out. It's between 2 or 2 and 3. So now let's decide. So we're sure about objectivity, we're sure about validity, we're sure about reliability. Let's check. If you're choosing an assessment instrument, would you be practical in choosing your instrument? That's what you have to ask yourself. Of course, in my end, if I can find materials locally, then I would do so. All right, that's practical. And also, between choosing your assessment instrument, would you be using something that will make checking or administering the assessment more efficient, right? Like for example, in my case, if I am teaching online class and my learners are located in different cities or in another island or perhaps in another part of the world, it would be very inefficient and very unpractical for me to fly and travel just to administer the assessment or get the results and compute it. I would normally use the internet to make my life easier, more practical, and it's going to be more efficient. Therefore, from that logic alone, I would say that practicality and efficiency is also a characteristic of a good assessment instrument. Therefore, I would choose D, and that is correct. So, the characteristics of a good assessment are objectivity, validity, practicality and efficiency, and reliability. So that's the answer there. So for our next question, what should teacher Jeff needs to do to establish the reliability of his test in mathematics? So the options are administer parallel test, split test, construct variety of items, and test retest. Okay, well, from this option, looking at the option, you can already judge that one is correct. So a parallel test is really correct. The next one is, as you can see, 4 is also there. So since 1 and 4, they're already present, I will cross out option C. So my options now, we have 1A, B, and C. Okay, now from these two options, do you believe that 2 and 3 could be a possible answer? Okay, yes it is. If that's the case, we will also cross out 4. So C and D, they're no longer in my choice, leaving me with 50-50% chance of getting this right. So now let's choose between 2 and let's choose between 3. So we know what a parallel test is. So your students will take the exam at the same time. That's why it's called parallel. The same type of exam at the same time. And test retest. Test retest is basically conduct a test and then you make them take the test after some time. Now, is constructing a variety of items a type of reliability test? It's more of a choice that you will be creating different kinds or types of items, right? So a split test is a type of test wherein you have set A's and set B. So they may have different types of, they may have different questions, but they have the same topic or perhaps they have the same type of items. This actually helps with testing or establishing reliability. Therefore, between 2 and 3, 2 is a type of test. Therefore, 3 is not a type of test because it's more of the way you choose or pick or create your own items. Therefore, 3 is not an option. In this case, I would choose 1, 2, and 4, and that is option number 2. There you go. That is correct. So here, parallel test, split test, test retest are tools to measure reliability. Okay. Now let's move on to our next question. Here, teacher Jeff constructed a matching type. In his column of descriptions are combinations of names, places, and events. What rule is violated in constructing a matching type test? Okay, here you can see that, let me give you one of my techniques also. If I see an option which is opposite from each other, I would, I would go to that option. I will eliminate the rest. So I will eliminate A and I will eliminate D. Why? Because homogeneous is different from heterogeneous, almost opposite. When say homogeneous, the options are the same. Heterogeneous, the options are different, right? Or varying. Now, let's go back to the question. The question states, what rule is violated? And there is an example given, right? So what is being violated now? So in this question, the column of descriptions are combinations of names, places, and events. In this example, the descriptions are actually different: names, places, and events. So the options are actually heterogeneous. So if the question is asking for the rule being violated, therefore, if the options given in the problem are heterogeneous, then it might mean that the description should have been homogeneous, correct? Therefore, between the two, I would choose homogeneous. Okay? However, what you also have to understand is that if you are developing a matching type test, the descriptions and options must be homogeneous. That's actually a rule in creating a matching type test, which has been violated in this example. Okay? Okay, so for our next question here, Teacher Jeff gives a 50-item test in mathematics where the mean performance of the group is 40 and the standard deviation is 6. Ryan obtained a score of 45. So which of the following best describes his performance? So the options are below average, average, above average, and outstanding. Okay, so let's go ahead and recall some of the concepts that we know. I hope you still remember your bell curve. In this particular example, so there are 50 items here. Okay, so that's given, and then the mean performance of the group is also stated as 40. So when you say mean performance, so that is the center of our bell curve, bell-shaped curve, right? So the mean is all the what do you still remember what is the other term for mean? When you hear the word mean, you're actually talking about the average. So meaning the average performance of the group is 40. Okay? And then additional information states that the standard deviation is 6. When what do you still recall about standard deviation? Standard deviation is basically the measure of how spread the data is. So how spread apart they are from each other. So meaning the standard deviation is 6. So there is what you call the upper side and the lower side. So if 40 is the average, the number below the average is called below average, right? So what is 6 units below 40? So that means that is 34 to before 40, probably 34 to 49, because we're talking about scores. So 34 to 40, 34 to 39, I mean 34 to 39, that is below average. 40 is average, and then 40 plus 6, so that's 41 to 46, that is above average. And of course 46 or 47 above, 47 to 50, that is considered outstanding. Okay, so the score Ryan obtained is 45. Now what is the best way to describe this performance? So from that logic, we can conclude that Ryan is scored above average here. Okay, so it is stated in the question that the mean performance is 40, standard deviation is 6, and Ryan's score is 45. So Ryan's score is within the +1 or the +1 standard deviation, which is 46, and that means that this performance is above average. Okay, for our last question for this set, which of the following do not belong to the group when we talk about projective personality test. Okay, so let's check first what is projective personality test. Okay, so projective personality test is a type of test wherein you wanted to draw out or draw in or project the personality or characteristic or behavior of an individual or a person. Okay, so among the following questions, which test do you think is not, according to this one, is not or does not belong to the projective personality test? Let's start first with thematic apperception test. It's really difficult, right? Maybe we're not even familiar with this. So the thematic apperception test is basically, it's a type of a test in psychology wherein they analyze your dreams, your desires, the choices that you make with your partners, your clothes. They analyze that so that they can determine your personality. So this is clearly a type of projective personality test, and usually something that's difficult may not really be the right answer in most cases, okay, but not all the time. So the next one is word association test. Well, it's actually a technique also in psychology, used before in doing research, wherein, if you're familiar with Boy Abunda, he actually have used this technique also when he does his interview in ABS-CBN. Okay, so word association. He would give a word, like, and then he would ask the participant to give the first thing that comes into their mind. Like, for example, ice water, and then the participant will provide thirsty, ice water, cold, right? Or if you say ice cream, say strawberry, mango, with my partner or lover, right? So that's word association. So that actually tells us about the personality of the person as well. Therefore, this is a type of projective personality test. So now we're left with two: sentence completion and interview. Let's start first with sentence completion because it's longer. Sentence completion, it's also something that Boy Abunda uses in his interview. So he would usually have a phrase or a sentence and then leaving some part blank. Like, for example, I love to blank. So the participant will provide the word that comes that they think is correct with the sentence or goes along with the sentence. So whatever would be their response would also be a form of drawing out their individual personality or beliefs. So therefore, sentence completion is a type of projective personality test. So options A, C, and D are part of the group. Therefore, interview is not a projective personality test. Why? Because we use that during our interview, when we do our survey. It's usually, in most cases, we use it to draw data or information, sometimes opinion. It may appear, but its primary function or use is not really to have to do a projective personality test. Therefore, interview is the right answer here. Okay, so there. Interview is sentence completion test, word association test, thematic apperception test are all projective personality test, while interview cannot be considered a test personality test. Okay. A test or a projective. I guess this is projective personality test. Okay. So now we have answered 10 questions for our assessment of learning set 1 as part of our Teacher Jeff free online reviewer. So please feel free to join my class, or you can just go back to this video so you can review some of the questions and also learn some of the test taking techniques I have learned before taking the board exam. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So once again, this is Teacher Jeff signing off, and thank you so much for participating and joining.